What is up, everybody? It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversation. As always, I like to say, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Also know I'm a certified empowerment coach and president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And we are here for another epic conversation. So for those people who may know a little bit about the Dr. Vibe show, you're probably used to seeing this gentleman or hearing this gentleman most Sunday nights on Do You Know What Time It Is, which is a live audio roundtable we do with black male thought leaders on a weekly basis. They give their thoughts and opinions on current events and news stories. But tonight, he's given his face to the world again. Hasn't been on for a while, but he's back with us. We have LeRon Barton. He's a writer from Kansas City, Missouri, that currently resides in San Francisco. He has been writing poetry, screenplays, and short stories since he says way young, which I don't know how old that is, but I'm going to let that go. His essays have appeared in Salon, The Good Men Project, where we both contribute on a regular basis, and he's been putting some serious content on The Good Men Project. You need to check it out. Also, platforms like Those People, AltRight, SF Bayview, BuzzFeed, Gorilla, Convict, and Elephant Journal. His first book, Straight Dope, a 360-degree look into American drug culture, was released in 2013, and his latest book, All We Really Need Is Love, Stories on Dating, Relationships, Heartbreak, and Marriage, is available at Amazon. But tonight, LeRon is going to be chatting about one of his favorite subjects. If anyone's listened to LeRon, he is going to chat about an article he wrote for the Good Men Project called Stop Blaming Trump for Racism. It was already here. So welcome visually to the Dr. Vibe Epic Conversation, LeRon Barton. How are you, LeRon?
I'm good, man. That was a hell of an introduction, man.
Well, you're a hell of a guy. Let me just take some water. I need to get some water after that.
You know what, man? Like it's always humbling to talk with you, Dr. Vibe, because I mean, I like to think, that like we're friends, and you've really given me a platform and just a lot of mentorship, and I just want to say thanks, man. I'm really always humbled, and I never take it for granted at all. And I always love I'm the jingle that you do is just always fantastic. So,
yeah, I know you like that. You like the I'm blessed, highly favored, a magnet for
absolutely,
miracles,
man.
and a solution for someone's problem. When we do our
So
Sunday night conversations, I always say that. And if I don't, LeRon says, you forgot something. So I always try to remember
always.
that. So I got it in. Voice is a little bit dry because I did an epic conversation before this one with Clarence Lee talking about Persist, who's an epic black male thought leader. Incredible.
Okay.
Part of his story. He has 3 degrees: a Bachelor of Science. He has his doctor. He's a MD, and he also has his MBA.
Wow. So like he's just making me feel like I'm just not
I
on my
know.
jail. Like,
Yeah, but you know what's really crazy? He applied 500 times before he got into medical school.
Wow, that says persistence is key, man. Dr. Bob, for me, like I always think about being like that kid standing in front of the basketball hoop and just constantly shooting and just saying, one day I'm gonna make it in. And so, hearing stories like that, you never want to give up. I know that everyone has times like when they're working on a goal and things may seem like it's fruitless, or that it's just, I'm sorry, not fruitless, but futile. And it's just, why am I doing this? But then, you get like a little breakthrough, and that kind of takes you, through a couple more months. So just never give up. I mean, if this brother wanted to apply for medical, he wanted to go to medical school that bad, and he did 500 times. I mean, that's, that dude's like my hero. So,
Well, you know what? He does not live that. He's also lives in California. So maybe I may want to have you
Nice.
two meet each other up. I may do that
I
after
would love to.
so it's another epic conversation, but you're in the hot seat. You got the spotlight now.
Yeah.
For people who are just seeing you for the first time, can you give a little bit of background about yourself? And then we'll get right
Yes.
into it. Not too much, because LeBron has been on visually before, so you can check out some
Right.
of the replays, but short little background.
Yeah. My name is LeRon Barton. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, South Side. I'm the son of just Giselle and Leandrew, brother of Brent. You know, friend of Minnie, partner of Michelle, and you know, I'm a writer. I mean, before my job, before love music, before anything, like I'm a son, and I'm a son. I'm a brother. Obviously, I'm a child of God, and I'm also a writer. I write about race a lot. I write about mass incarceration. I write about politics. I write about gender, and on occasion, if I want to keep things light, I write about dating.
Oh,
Just the reason.
dating is light. I've seen some of the
Yeah.
stuff. I've seen some of the stuff you've written about dating. I don't know if it's light, but that's a whole other topic.
It's a whole other topic, B.
Yeah.
Whole other topic.
So
But
where
no, I just love to give a voice to black men because I feel like that we're so marginalized, and that whenever we want to talk about us or the issues that we face, it's always, I mean, there's always obstructions being placed in our way.
excellent. Where did the passion for writing come from?
Well, I mean, I think that I mean, believe that it's God given. I mean, I think God blesses us with one talent. I mean, when I grew up, like I wanted to be three things. Like I wanted to be a stunt man, I wanted to be a race car driver, and I wanted to be a writer. And I'm not a good driver. That's why that's one of the reasons why that I live in San Francisco. And I just, stuntmen kind of break bones, and I've never had a bone broken, knock on wood. And so, I say, I always tell people, I'm like, I I I wasn't able to be Lewis Hamilton, but I can try to be as close to James Joyce as I can. So my mother, she was a writer. I come from a family of artists, illustrators, painters, and the friends that I hung around in high school, they were also artists. So that just really just encouraged me to really just kind of push that. And it's the easiest thing that I can do. It's like it just comes to me.
Excellent. Good to know. When did you get the passion to start writing about race issues?
It's funny. I think that my awakening, as far as that goes, happened like right after the Trayvon Martin verdict. Like as a black man, like I mean, I've always been very conscious about race, but I would like to say very confused. And I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, which kind of changed my life, which is the most important book that I've ever read. And then I read uh, Studs Terkel's Race, which is, in my opinion, the greatest book that you can read on race. I
Race
mean,
matters.
it's just yeah,
That's a
yeah.
great
I mean,
book.
yeah, man. I mean, race definitely matters, and I just listening to people such as Cornel West, again Malcolm X, reading Franz Fanon. And also like present day people such as the great Dr. Tommy Curry. I mean, like that brother, he's just he's definitely special. Listening to podcasts such as The Context of White Supremacy, reading Frederick Douglass. Langston Hughes has always been like my favorite poet, and just getting the courage to talk about that. And again, like I always felt that black men are somehow we're kind of denied a platform, because of the way that society kind of views us as these brutes, as these savages, and many people are afraid of black masculinity, and so I just wanted to just give voice to the black men that may not have the courage to write, or may not be in the position to write.
Well, let's get right into the article because I know you have a lot you
Absolutely.
want to share. Why did you write this article at this time?
It's funny because I felt that well, I think that America will never be 100% honest about racism, white supremacy, because it's a system that encompasses everything. And so when we talk about racism, we're always trying to spare white people's feelings, and we're always trying to paint it as one thing. And it's not until recently that we've been looking at racism, white supremacy as a system that controls everything that you and I come in contact with. And I just felt that with Donald Trump, him being such a vile racist character, it's very easy for people, and specifically white people, but there's also a lot of non-white people who want to just paint this picture, saying that, oh, Trump has brought racism to the forefront. Trump has just totally emboldened people to just go crazy, and and oh my God, the U.S. has gotten so terrible. And I'm just sitting back and I'm like, you guys are not being honest here. The fact of the matter is that America's been really, really racist for a long time. I mean, like, America's never been great. And I think that people thought that, after the election of Barack Obama, that will be a turning point for race relations. But, and I know that that for every little bit of, and I hate to use this term, progress that black people make, there's going to be this severe white backlash. And so, a lot of people bought into this post-racial America, and that now that Trump is back, not back, but now that we have a white man back into the White House speaking clearly to what many whites want, it's really troubling a lot of white liberals and a lot of confused non-white people.
Want to start breaking down this article. One of the things that
Yes,
I
sir.
found interesting was that you make a comment here saying that ever since Donald Trump began running, pardon me, for president of the United States, there has been a focus to blame him for any and all racism that exists today. Why do you feel some people think that?
Well, because I think Donald Trump, he's an easy scapegoat, right? So I mean, you have this person who is so upfront and just very very overt about his views. I mean, Donald Trump wants to ban Muslims. He wants to build walls that separate the United States from Mexico. He thinks Black Lives Matter. They are troublemakers. So you have a guy who's just so unrefined with his racism. Versus someone like a Bill Maher, or the quote unquote limousine liberal, or even perfect example would be a Hillary Clinton. We don't look at those people as being racist, but we're quick to point out a skinhead being racist, or a Klan member being racist, or just some crazy silly white woman in a Walmart, yelling, nigger and like racial slurs against Latinos. But we're not looking at the fact that where I live in around Silicon Valley, many of the tech companies have less than 3% of black people. That's just as racist.
Excellent. So you think that President Trump's getting a bit of a raw deal when he gets sort of fingered or attacked about racism? Like him bringing it out into
Right.
the open.
Well, I don't want to show any support for Trump, So I mean, it's like when we say he's getting a raw deal. Like I don't want to answer that and say, oh yeah, oh yeah, of course Trump is getting beat up. No, like I think that Trump is just showing a different kind of racism. It's just more overt, and I think that the average white person, just keeping it all the way live, they like their racism more covert, more sort of on the sly, things such as, okay, well, if we see two or three black people walking in our neighborhood, let's just anonymously call call the cops, or we don't want too many black kids in our school. That kind of racism. I mean, because people don't look at that as racism. They just look at that as just normal behavior. But to the masses, racism is like, some cop shooting a black person because they think that he has drugs and or a gun. I mean, it has to be something very harsh and very very hard. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand. I understand. Moving forward a little bit, it's interesting. You give a slice of America's race or racism's
Yeah.
greatest hits. Where did the thought process come behind that?
Sometimes I see. How can I say this? I like to sort of play with things. I like to inject humor, and I just felt that okay, let's just give people examples in a sort of a plain but sort of as funny as you can be. There's nothing funny about racism, white supremacy, right? But just to call it like racism's greatest hits and say, oh yeah, well these are the Cliff Note versions. So so I just wanted to just sort of put that in people's faces and say, look, before Trump was elected, this is what we've been going through. And if you notice, I started with the Native Americans because it's really important for us to, put that into context that this country was just it was erected in fire. And the streets are paved with blood. It's through the genocide of the Native American and the enslavement of the African. So we can never forget that. So if we have a country that has a rocky foundation, it's never going to erect a stable house.
And I'll just run through some of LeRon's racism greatest hits that he puts down: Native American genocide, slavery, Reconstruction, black codes, Jim Crow, civil rights movement, 1963 bombing of the Birmingham church that killed 4 black girls, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, Japanese internment camps, Mexican women being sterilized in Los Angeles, the need for affirmative action, which ended up benefiting white women,
Yep.
CIA placing drugs in inner cities to fund Nicaragua soldiers, the creation of mass incarceration and imprisoning black and brown men and women by incredible numbers, and police terroristic murder of unarmed black men that are not prosecuted. I Is there any one of those that you want to speak to power to? I think one of the ones I'd like you to speak to power to is the whole black codes.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, the Black Codes was just this. So in the hood growing up, right? They have, there's a slang, we call catch me's, right? And what it is like, let's say you or I were on parole, right? And we do something like something that's unavoidable that we can't help but to violate parole or I'm sorry, or to, have a probation infraction such as maybe, going to see our mother in a neighborhood that, we're not allowed to go to, or, having a gun because, even though felons can't have guns, some people live a dangerous lifestyle that you have to have a gun. So I equate that with the black codes as being like a lot of it was just sort of vagrancy. It's like if a black person doesn't have a job, they're cited. If a black person is out at a certain night, I'm sorry, at a certain time of night, they're cited. It's a lot of these sort of catch me's, and it's just stuff that black folks we just were not able to avoid sort of violating. And so what's interesting about the black codes, Dr. Vibe, is that had a lot to do with the what I like to call the fine economy. If you rack up, say, like X amount of fines on your car, or if you're constantly ticketed, either jaywalking, fare avoidance, then you have all these fines and you get imprisoned, and the only way to get out would be to pay these fines. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just it a, a lot of these things that were used to persecute black people are commonplace today. You know what I mean? Like, I believe, like, one of the terms that they use nowadays is debtor's prison, because it's so crazy. You get locked up. You come out and you owe X amount of thousands of dollars in debt, in restitution, and in fines. Well, and if you don't pay this in X amount of time period, then you could be locked up. Well, how do I pay that if I'm having difficulty finding a job? So then what I may do is I may hit the street to make money, but I'm also taking what we call in the hood penitentiary chances, and or breaking a law just to pay these fines. So if I do get caught, then guess what? I'm going back to prison. So do you see the cycle that I'm describing? And if anyone has any more questions about what I described, I highly advise you read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. She breaks it down much more thoroughly in a super granular way.
Excellent. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Lawrence Rashid, who's watching
Rashid,
live, and he has a
brother,
question for you. I'm holding it off for a little bit, but Dr. Rashid, I will ask LeRon the question. I want to continue going through the article here, and you talk about how Barack Obama was treated and how this relates to this subject. So could you share with our audience your thoughts on that?
yeah. So again, going back to how people just think that, Trump just brought this wave of racism. And I'm just like, well, are we forgetting how terrible then President Barack Obama was treated? I mean, he was called a monkey. His wife was compared to a dog. In hundreds of rallies across the country, they showed caricatures of him. There were dolls in nooses. There were signs with Obama the witch doctor. There were bumper stickers. I remember it was one bumper sticker that there was like during the 2012 election, where it said time to renege. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, politicians in cities and states called him nigger. I remember there was a chief Republican strategist. I forget the guy's name, but I'll never forget this because it was so outrageous. It was the beginning of the 2000, believe it was the beginning of his first term, and the guy called him a ghetto Indonesian thug. I mean, this is just describing the president here. People thought that because President Barack Obama was elected, black folks would get free stuff. So they called him the food stamp president, even though Barack Obama made cuts to the food stamp bill. They, I mean, I've seen pictures of him dressed as a pimp, with Michelle Obama being one of his hoes. I mean, watermelon patches. But even throughout all the insults, I mean, you seen the Republican strategists, I mean, just the Republican politicians and the commentators just giving them the utmost disrespect. And when Barack Obama got elected, and this is something that I talk about in the piece, the website Stormfront, it's a white supremacist website. It crashed. I mean, from what the Southern Poverty Law Center reported, membership to white nationalist groups jumped 700%. I know that gun owners, I mean, like gun sales shot through the roof because for some reason white people thought that Obama was going to take all their guns. I mean, just things like that. I mean, I was amazed that we just somehow just forgot in the past 8 years everything that this black man went through. I mean, this guy. I mean, even internationally, like I remember, I believe, in North Korea, he was referred to. I mean, as a just like monkey dung. So I mean, like we could have this entire show talking about just the utter disrespect that Barack Obama went through, but I just again I just find the whole statement of Donald Trump bringing racism back as just being just so disingenuous. I mean, it's just it's just wrong.
Understood. And people need to understand that LeRon is not an overt Barack Obama supporter.
Absolutely not. No, no.
So for LeRon to give Barack Obama love, that's a big thing, believe me. So
I wouldn't call it love, but
okay, well, to how can I say, maybe some respect?
absolutely.
Okay,
Look, Barack Obama at the end of the day, he's a victim of racism. I understand it. I mean, I'm not a fan. I mean, if anyone's ever listened to your show, they know how I feel about him. So,
understood. And if you don't know, you're not going to find out. Go listen to some of the other shows. Listen to
cool.
some of the Sunday night replays. Now I will slide in the conversation piece that Dr. Rashid has asked. He has a question. Has mental health status for black males changed under the current administration, in your opinion?
That's interesting because, well, I mean, well, first off, again, shout out to Dr. Rashid. Huge fan. It's a shame that we have not gotten a chance to get together because we both live in the Bay Area, but I'm not going to go there.
And neither am I, because I'm in Toronto, so I'll let you two handle that. Go on.
To quote Neely Fuller, black people don't qualify for mental health, issues. And I believe what Mr. Fuller meant by that is that under the system of racism, white supremacy, we're not going to get those. We're not going to get that sort of status. We're not going to get that sort of handicap. I don't think that our status has changed. I mean, mental health has always been this taboo subject within our community anyway. So I recommend everyone to go see a shrink. I mean, sorry, not a shrink, but to go see a therapist, to go see a doctor. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just another day on the plantation. So.
All right, got your stuff there. So you make a statement here also in the article that the reason why many think the Trump administration has brought racism to the forefront is that so much of the publicized acts are overt. So can you get into that for us?
Yeah. So as I say in the article, within 10 days of his election, I believe was almost 800 hate crime incidents. Right. So I mean, you had people spray painting swastikas. I know in the Bay Area, a young Latina, she was attacked. A white man yanked her hair. People being verbally and physically assaulted on subways and other public transportation vehicles. I mean, there was video of just a young Pakistani person being being beat up. So I mean, a lot of these overt attacks happen within that 10-day span, and that just caused people to just sort of, I guess, panic and to just say, oh my God, this is what the Antichrist is. This is what he's brought. But I mean, if you look at it, like, those incidents have always been there. It's just that I think that today, with the advent of camera phones and Facebook Live and just photos, a lot of that stuff is being more present, and maybe with video, people are actually starting to believe non-white people when we say that we are under attack. But I mean, I discussed, I've discussed this with with my girlfriend Michelle, and I asked her, I was like, do you think things are worse or are the same with Donald Trump being in office? And she said, oh well, I I think things are worse. And I said, well, I maybe it's just because I'm a young black man and I've always been under attack, and I've always been looked at as the enemy. I don't think things have changed all that much. I mean, when I say, just another day on the plantation, I don't mean to be flippant. I just say, well, this is what we've always been conditioned to go through. But I, Dr. Bob, I could be wrong, but that's the reason why people think that that Donald Trump has brought this super wave of racists because it's just been more overt actions.
What are your comments? And you mentioned at the beginning of the article about the incident that happened in Portland, Oregon.
I think that historically Portland has been an extremely racist city, but I mean, then again, I mean, man, like, where else? I mean, like, what city in the United States hasn't been racist? I mean, people forget that about, gosh, in the 90s there was there was a hate crime incident. A young African immigrant. He was going to school, and he had been attacked by a hate group. So I mean, Portland has always had these type of attacks. I mean, I believe in its inception, Portland was created to be a whites only city. So I mean, again, it's kind of going back to what I said earlier about the foundation. I mean, look, Portland doesn't have a lot of black people, and just Portland's history. I mean, you can read about this. I mean, all this stuff is available online. So I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, for as liberal of a city as cities like Portland, San Francisco, Seattle, they seem to have a lot of hate crime incidents against non-white people.
Do you feel is it is it the fact that we're in such an open media culture that people may think that America's a more racist society? It's just that it's more open now. It's just so anyone can be a broadcaster.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we look at a perfect example are the incidents of police terrorism against young black and Latino people across America. I mean, as I said before, we had been talking about this for so long. I mean, Rodney King wasn't an aberration, right? I mean, black people have been being killed and beaten by the police for so long, but I guess because people can't deny video, or some people will. I mean, like, some people will try, but because there's just overwhelmingly evidence that people cannot look away from, they finally see that it's a problem, but like, let's just forget the fact that we've been telling you that we've been going through this for so long. So now it's just like with racism in 2017, because there's just so many overt acts, and the fact that people are blogging about them, people are making videos about them, people are taking videos about them. It's caused it to be more in America's conscious.
What are your thoughts about this perceived group, the alt-right, and what effect are they having on the whole area of racism in America today?
Well, I mean, I just think that the alt-right, they're just a bunch of clean cut white guys with college degrees that don't believe in like shaving their heads, don't believe in wearing Doc Martens, and they may say a little SAT words here and there, but I mean they're no different from any other races. I mean, I believe probably the only difference, Dr. Bob, is how they present themselves. But I mean, their goal is is fairly similar to, you know, a skinhead's goal, to a white nationalist, to a Christian identity, to a KKK member, and that's just having a whites only democracy, having a whites only America. I mean, the guy Richard Spencer, he cleans up well. He's very well spoken, and he's able to articulate his views in a way that, while may not be nice, aren't peppered with racist language. I mean, he knows how to say and use code words such as, diversity's bad. We need to take this country back to how it's been founded. I mean, it's just more slick talk.
How much of an impact do you think that the so-called alt-right is going to have during the Trump administration?
Oh, I mean, Steve Bannon is an all right guy. I mean, like, I think that, to use a friend's train of thought, I think that Trump is so ignorant and just not knowledgeable about politics that he's going to be exploited by people who have much more experience and who have a much deeper knowledge base, and a lot of those people alt-right people. I mean, people like Richard Spencer. I mean, and he's going to be a big influence. I think that people such as himself, people such as Steve Bannon, the guy Milo, I forgot his last name, but people like that, they know how to sell racism in 2017 without making it seem as savage or as brutal as, say, someone like a Richard Butler does, or you know just or any other garden variety skinhead leader.
What do you think also too of people, gentlemen like a Jeff Sessions?
Well, I mean, I think that we should have listened to what Coretta Scott King said. I mean, let's think about this, right? Jeff Sessions wants to severely hamper people's ability to attempt to have police prosecuted, right? So he's a law and order guy, which is just code for let's allow the police to do whatever they want to black and other non-white people, right? So Jeff Sessions, he doesn't believe that the police can do no wrong, and when you are not the subject of abuse, when you are not the target of terrorism, then how can you sit up here and say that, well, there's really no racism, right? Like a person like Jeff Sessions believes that a Mario Woods, that a Alex Nieto, that a Eric Garner, that a Tamir Rice, those are aberrations, that those aren't endemic. I'm sorry, those don't represent an entire culture. That those things are not systemic, even though we have countless data that shows that. There's no surprise that police unions and many law enforcement organizations such as correction facility unions were pro Trump, and they were very they endorsed the idea of a Jeff Sessions becoming Attorney General because he's going to have their back. And so with Jeff Sessions being in there, that's really going to embolden police and sheriffs and other law enforcement officials to just do what they want to do.
In regards to racism in the United States, and I guess we'll keep it from a black perspective because you are
Yes,
black.
sir.
Do you feel that African Americans will be able to overcome it on their own, or will they need help from non African American communities to squash this challenge?
It's a very good question. So I think that black people, well, for starters, Dr. Vibe, like that's that's such a complex question. So I'm gonna have to answer it in steps.
Sure. No, because one of the reasons why I'm asking that, because I know that you believe that white supremacy exists.
Absolutely.
And, if you go back to the days of civil rights, there was help from non African American communities to
Right.
get. So, do you see that would have to be repeated? Will it have to be repeated for African Americans to move forward in the area of racism in America?
Well, so first off, we need to have a healthy understanding of what racism is. Prior to 2013, I thought racism was, just cops beating Rodney King, the KKK with their cross burnings, or, you know, bombing the Montgomery church, very, very overt actions. I didn't understand that racism was a system. So we have to understand that not only is racism a system, but it's a worldwide system, and that every white person is complicit, right? I mean, this it's just there's no way that you can be white and grow up in the system and not be racist or harbor racist views. It's impossible. So the second part of the question is, do I think that that black people can overcome it by ourselves? Well, I'm gonna go with something that I always agree with Dr. Rashid on. I believe that racism is permanent. I think that there's always going to be a form of racism that exists, because I mean, it's in order for racism to be annihilated, the world has to be annihilated. I mean, it's too entrenched in our society to to just have it go away, man. I mean, like, we would have to completely start over, and racism taints every inch of our society. Do I think that other groups can assist us in the fight? I think that other non-white groups absolutely, and I'm kind of seeing that more and more. I think that there hopefully will be more coalitions built. Do I think that white people will be a part of that? Well, let's just look at. So I believe that history is our best teacher, right? And if you've looked at throughout history, there hasn't been a sizable amount of white people to help to help us out. Let's just look at it this way, right? Whenever people talk about, great white people helping out black people to fight racism, white supremacy, what's the one person that they name? John Brown. For those that don't know, John Brown was a famous abolitionist, right? So throughout history, from then to now, the only white guy that we can name is John Brown. That's pretty sad, right? Now, however, I do see that there are more young whites that are really interested, and that are seeing the total the total bullcrap that white supremacy is, and that they do want some type of some type of parity, some type of justice. I welcome allies in this fight because I mean, racism affects us all, right? I was having a discussion with one of my really good friends, Ellen, and she said, racism stunts white people too, and I was like, how? And she said, well, it stunts their growth. It doesn't allow them um, to sort of grow into what they can be. And I didn't understand that until now. And I was like, well, you know what? You could be right. So I I hope so, man. I mean, but at the end of the day, I don't think that non-white people should really count on it, though. You know, what I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic, but at the end of the day, if black people want liberation, then we're gonna have to do then we're gonna have to do it on our own. So I know that answer kind of went everywhere because I mean I have conflicting views on it. I don't want to I don't want to alienate. I don't want to cast anyone out. But we're talking about my life. We're talking about lives of other black people in this world, and I just want to be as realistic as possible. So they're welcome, but we don't. But like we're not going to count on them though.
Okay. Then what do you feel the role of economics will play in the future of overcoming racism in America?
It's funny. Like that's a interesting argument that I've been reading about. People like Dr. Boyce Watkins, people like the author of the book Powernomics. They believe that economics is the key to racism. I'm sorry, is the key to ending racism. They believe that the lack of economics is racism. And I can see that point. If you look at a place like Chicago, Chicago could be remedied if people had economic opportunities, if there were more upwardly mobile options. But I mean, at the end of the day, though, we had our own economies like Rosewood. We had a Black Wall Street, and those were eradicated by racists. So I mean, I don't think that economics is the end all be all, but I do think that it's a big part though. But I mean, it's something that we cannot ignore though.
So if it isn't just totally economics, what other factors do you feel would need to be involved in order to overcome the racism?
I think that again, understanding what racism is. I think black people. I I love this term, practicing black self-respect, and just not forgiving, not giving any excuses towards racist white people, not being surprised when racism happens. I mean, that's it's interesting. Like we've been in America for hundreds and hundreds of years, and you have black folks that are still surprised that white people do racist things, and I'm like, well, they've been doing this. So so I'm just like, yeah, like why are you surprised? Like I mean, we have to and I hate to say like that we have to like prejudge, but I mean, I'll just say just don't be surprised when something like that happens. So just sort of just getting our mind in a mode of just like thinking about racism logically, taking out the emotions about it.
That's good points. That's good points. Why do you what do you feel or what do you see in your crystal ball over the next few years when it comes to racism in your country?
I think there's going to be a lot more young non-white people speaking up. I'm hoping that there will be whites that will continue to call out other whites when practicing racism. I think that racism, as Derek Bell said, I mean, it's always gonna take different shapes. It's always gonna change. When you read off those examples, right? When we talked about the black codes and the civil rights and mass incarceration. I mean, so racism, it may not look the way that it looked back in the 80s as it does now, but to quote Tommy Curry, I'm sorry, Dr. Tommy Curry, it burst and it's a living organism. So I just hope that we understand that, and that just that we're not caught off guard. Because I mean, there's a saying where I come from, stay ready, don't get ready. So yeah, so I mean, just I'm just hoping that we are thinking a couple steps ahead on it.
Interesting. Over the last number of years, there have been significant events when it comes to African Americans and racism. One of them being the Rodney King beating.
Sure.
What do you feel, if you look 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line, what significance will be put on the Trayvon Martin incident, in your opinion?
I think the Trayvon Martin was such I hate to call it like landmark, but it's one of those incidents that you will never forget where you were and how you felt about it. And it really revealed what a lot of people thought about race. To me, Trayvon Martin is the ultimate litmus test. And it's one of those things, man, where like you can't be lukewarm about it. You're either or. And I think a lot of young black people really got woken up when it came to Trayvon Martin. I know that it did it for me. When I talk to fellow activists, they tell me all the time, man. It was Trayvon Martin. I mean, and I never forget this because the verdict had just came out, right? And so I went to go see Fruitvale Station, about the Oscar Grant killing. I'm sorry, lynching. And so I didn't want to finish watching the entire film because I just was like, I just didn't need to see it. And I walked out of the theater and I just broke down and cried because I said, wow, like, they can just kill us. And so with the Trayvon Martin, I mean, you, Trayvon Martin was just a young man, and he was profiled and he was killed because a white man feared him. And there's a classic, I guess, cartoon drawing that I guess like back in like the 1900s, where this white man is standing over this this black man with the gun smoking, and he says something to the effect of, I had to kill you because if I didn't, you were going to rise up and kill me. And so I think about that when I think about Trayvon Martin, because just this fear. And so for me, that's when I realized that black men are just inherently feared. I mean, it's a completely irrational, illogical fear, because if anything, we should fear white people tenfold, right? But for some reason, like the game got switched up, and so yeah, that was the genesis for a lot of people, including myself.
As we start winding down the conversation, your last paragraph says, by blaming President Trump for such racist acts, such as the attack in Portland and any other racial aggressions, is obfuscation, obfuscating the real problem that we have. We will never get to the real solution until we're real with ourselves. Racism was here before Trump and will be here after, and we need to admit that. Is America ready, in your opinion, at this time to have that, get real with themselves, with itself?
No, no. So if you are a black non-white person and you're asking for a conversation about race, you lost already. I mean, there's really nothing to talk about because I mean, like the data's there. Like, I mean, there's been countless writers, countless movies, countless artists that have told, America, this is how we've been treated. This is how America treats us. So, I mean, America and white people in general will never be able to have a conversation on race because, and I've said this before, Dr. Bob, I don't think that they can be 100% honest about race because, and this is the real reason why that I wrote the piece, because when we talk about racism, white supremacy, we're indicting everybody, right? And I mean, we're indicting white people, but we're also indicting black people who are complicit in the system as well, who keep the system going by, calling it things such as white privilege, by, saying, oh, well, if we just, talk to the white people and if we just give them a book, if we just have lectures or, black people that deny that it exists and blame our struggles and our troubles on lack of hard work. I mean, it indicts a whole mess of people. So when we talk about it, that means that so many people are going to have blood on their hands, and no one wants to be left holding the bag, and no one wants to be found guilty on it. So,
what is it going to take for that to turn?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Honestly, man, listen, like, I'm just a young guy trying to survive, trying to give voice to black folks. Maybe someone reads what I'm writing and says, okay, well, I'm gonna move a little differently. You know what I mean? But I don't know, man. I mean, I would really be curious to hear people's thoughts on that, because I mean, look, if 4 black girls that were bombed in a church, if that hasn't changed people, if showing black men just lynched on camera, I mean, if that hasn't changed people, I mean, I don't know what can, man. I mean, and you have just so many black folks trying to just appeal to the morality. I'm like, man, look, give it up. I mean, it's time to try something else. I mean, I don't believe in trying to do the same thing over and over again, because I mean, I believe with what Einstein said. That's just insanity. So,
Do you, people who listen to you, some people who listen to you may think that you don't like white people. Is that the case?
that wrong. Listen, so all right, and this is another thing, right? So I have white friends. There's some white people that I truly love. I just understand that, who I am and what kind of system I live under. Just look, it's just like, all right. So I have a couple of friends, right, who are, I have a couple women friends who are just crazy hard in the yard on feminism and calling men out. And I don't take offense to that, because I know what they're saying is true. Men are dogs. Men are the problem when it comes to women being raped, women not not getting paid their fair wages, women feeling like that they have to walk two and three at a time to their car. So when I talk about racism, white supremacy, I'm just telling you this from my point of view. I think the problem is that many whites they will personalize what I'm saying as if I'm attacking them directly, and I'm not. I'm just telling you that under a system of racism, white supremacy, white people have this innate credibility that you or I will never be able to obtain. The fact is that they will never experience an iota of what you or I go through. But I mean, like hate, like look, hate's illogical. You like me hating white people. How does that help us beat the system? Like that's just stupid.
Well, let's wrap it up here. Do you have any final comments in regards to this subject about Donald Trump, racism, etc.? How'd you like to wrap it up?
I would just say, well, first off, thank you for having me on the show, Dr. Vibe. Thank you for everyone that's read the piece, and I've got some really good feedback on it. Just let's let's look at racism as a whole. I like I've heard like some people say, referencing the Bill Maher incident. Him saying the word nigger is just as racist as someone spray painting nigger on LeBron James' home, just as racist as someone attacking Mexican people because they are Mexican. It's all interchangeable, and this stuff has been happening before Trump got in office, and it's going to keep happening because it's America, man. I mean, it's to quote Ras Kass. I mean, racism is as American as baseball and apple pie. So I mean, let's just keep that in our mind and get a healthy understanding of racism. And once we do that, Dr. Bob, then we could move towards replacing the system with a system of justice.
And just out of curiosity, what's the response has been like with this article?
Very positive. Much more positive than the gaslighting article, which people just hated me for. Got called nigger a couple times, but when you practice black self-respect and when you talk about racism in a very real way, you have to expect things like that to happen. So thank you for everybody for reading it.
All right. Well, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yes, sir. You can go to www.leronbarton.com. That's LeronBarton. You can also find me. I have a professional writing page. It's LeRon L. Barton on Facebook, and you can also find me on Twitter at Mainline LeRon, as well as on Instagram under at LeRon L. Barton. So I'm always looking for a good conversation. If you agreed, if you didn't agree, please let me know, and we can definitely talk as long as there is no nasty words.
Absolutely, and definitely we'll put all that contact information with the post for the replay of this epic conversation. And hey, you can go check out the article, Stop Blaming Trump for Racism. In brackets, it was already here. It's one of the trending posts right now at thegoodmenproject.com. So obviously there's been a lot of response to it, and certainly check it out. And well, you also can hear LeRon most Sunday nights, 9 p.m.
Yep.
Eastern time. Do you know what time it is? Live audio roundtable with black male thought leaders. LeRon, thanks again as always. It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations. If you want to check out any of the replays, video ones, go to the YouTube channel. We have almost 200 people subscribed,
Wow.
which is very nice. We're very humbled with that. So you can do that. Audio replays are different platforms. I already mentioned the website. You can also check them out at the Good Men Project, WJMS Radio, iHeartRadio, Tuned In Radio, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music Store. Also, do know I'm a certified empowerment coach, and if you would like to get a complimentary 30-minute session, I would love to do that for you, because I believe the more empowerment you have in your own life, the more you can help other people with their lives. So that offer is always out there. Also want to include this, that the views and opinions expressed on the Dr. Vibe show are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Dr. Vibe show. Any content provided by our guests are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual, anyone or anything. So, as always, I'd like to say, you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. God bless, peace, be well, keep the faith. Thank you so much for enjoying the epic conversation, and do reach out and do really read this article. It'll give you one of those things like Arsenio Hall back in the day would go, There you go. So
Things
make it
that
go
make you
home.
go home,
Things
right?
that make you go home. So God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and thanks to Lawrence Rashid for jumping on and helping making this an epic conversation. God bless. See you soon.